Two wonderful authors for you coming up in the next couple of hours. And authors, go to great lengths, don't they, sometimes, to carry out research for their novels. But for her latest thriller, L.A. Larkin spent time on a Russian ex-scientific vessel in one of the coldest places on Earth, Antarctica. She learned how to shoot, sew up wounds and hack into a laptop, amongst other things. The book is called Devour. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Louisa.
It's lovely to be here. And from that introduction, it kind of sounds like I'm actually a criminal. But
yes, right.
I am actually an author, and I'm doing research for the book Devour and other books. So, just to clarify that.
Not at all.
I don't want to be arrested as I walk out of here.
Yes,
No,
or member of
right.
the Russian state hacking services.
Oh, yes. Well, we all know, how good
We don't
they
want to
are
talk
at
about
their
that.
job.
Well, they are pretty
They're very
good.
good at their job. And how topical is that?
That is.
Gruesome title, fantastic title, instantly makes you wonder what it's all about. What more can you tell us without giving the game away? Give us a brief summary.
So Devour starts in Antarctica with a group of scientists drilling down through 3 kilometres of ice. So it's really deep ice, because they believe that there is a lake, a liquid lake that has been cut off from the rest of the world for millennia. And they believe that in that lake they will find life, microbial life. And what the book is about is when they actually do succeed in bringing that life to the surface, how it was actually a very bad idea to do so, and that there are some really dangerous people who want to get hold of what they find down there.
Great
So I don't want to
stuff.
say too much, but it is a real action, adventure, high intrigue thriller.
And based on something that you were told about or read briefly about, a similar kind of experiment a few years back.
Yes, so my thrillers are very much inspired by scientific developments, and I'm an avid reader of things like New Scientist and so on, and I also keep in touch with what British Antarctic Survey is doing, because I find the science that they're doing there absolutely fascinating. And back in 2012, there was an expedition with British Antarctic Survey to a very remote part of Antarctica. And let's face it, the continent is about as remote as you can get anyway. But they were in this isolated camp, and the expedition was led by Professor Martin Siegert. And they were trying to do exactly what I've just described. They were drilling down using a uniquely developed hot water drill to drill down through 3 kilometres. Can you imagine how difficult that is? To get to this lake that they believe was down there called Lake Ellsworth. And very sadly for the team, they had some technical issues. I believe they ran out of fuel to power this drill, and so they didn't succeed. But as soon as I read it, I was thinking, yes, but what if they did? And what if it was catastrophic to do so? And that's really how the idea for Devour came about.
How interesting that nobody else took up the challenge afterwards, or nobody else funded it. I mean, it sounds like such an incredible thing to do. Why hasn't it continued? Do you know?
So for instance, the first expedition that Professor Siegert and his team actually did took 10 years in the planning.
Right.
And they are massive expeditions, and
Very
they need
expensive.
funding. But I have actually spoken to him recently. I'm going to catch up with him next week, and he was explaining that there is another expedition planned and that he is going to go back. It will be a different lake, a slightly shallower one, because it's easier to get to and less likely that the drill will break. So I'm delighted. So I'm very excited, because...
It'll be your sequel.
What if what I've described in Devour actually comes true?
Let's hope not.
Oh, let's not. Let's hope not. For all our sakes, because I'm going underground if that happens.
Yes, you need all your survivalist training there.
You do have to use your survivalist training if that happens.
Yeah, well, I very much hope that Godzilla stays fiction. That's all I can say, Louise. I really don't want to see these giant Japanese-created monsters fighting each other.
Yes.
So I've only just through therapy got those dreams out of my system, so I really don't want it to come true. Louise, tell me about the conversation you had with your publisher when you said, well, you know what, I'm not going to go on YouTube. I'm going to have to go to Antarctica to go and do all of this. Is this, I mean, in the Genesis floor, did you go and witness experiments in Zimbabwe, for instance? I mean, you definitely want to go in.
Yeah, so in fact, really interestingly, recently, there's been an article that has described me as an extreme researcher, which kind of has a bit of a ring to it. But I am a bit of an adventurer anyway, and I'm very lucky that the style of thriller that I write suits my kind of adventurous, I guess, personality. So yes, I have travelled through Zimbabwe and spent time there. I have been to Antarctica.
Clearly,
I have spent time with the hackers. So, for instance, the Genesis Floor, which is a thriller that you're describing.
Yeah.
I actually went to a hackers convention. Now, I didn't know that they had them.
Certainly not publicly.
Not publicly, no. And he took me along to this, and I have to say, I didn't understand a word that they were talking about, because it was all, binary numbers and goodness knows what, and there were all these, terms that they were using. But it was fascinating because I was people watching. And I remember they said to me, the guy I was with, who is a white hat hacker. I should just clarify.
That's a goodie.
Yeah, so the white hat hackers defend
Ethical
the systems.
hackers, yeah.
They're the ones employed by the police and the corporations to defend. The black hat hackers are the bad ones that are malicious. And I remember the guy that was with me said, we were looking at various people. Everyone was wearing black T-shirts and black jeans and so on. And he said, you see those two over there? I went, yes. He said, they're detectives. They're here to catch the black hat hackers. And I looked at them, I thought, how on the earth could you know that? And he said, they have a suntan.
Ah, yes.
They
of
are
course.
really tanned.
They've been
And you know
outside,
what?
yes.
The one we spend so much
Right.
time inside, we are not. But it's funny.
course.
Those what I call those little bits of what I call them the bricks of detail. They're little bits of gems, so that when you're writing a book, you can actually include those, and it helps bring it to life. And it's also the reason why I went to Antarctica, because you can watch videos on Antarctica, you can interview scientists, as I have. But I don't think, particularly somewhere as alien as Antarctica, and I honestly can tell you it's the most alien, breathtaking, and dangerous place that I have ever been. But to go there enabled me, I hope, to bring Antarctica and the severity of the climate and the danger to life on the page.
Certainly. Even getting there through the Drake Passage, one of the
Ooh,
most
yes.
infamously
Well,
rough
that was
stretches of water in the world. What was that like?
Okay, well, put it this way. I was warned that it was very rough, and I am a good sailor. And basically I went to my doctor beforehand and I said, look, I'm going to do this. And he said, right, here are your seasickness pills. He said, these are tough enough to tranquilise a rhino, that you will be fine. I went, good, thank you. Get on the ship, off we go. And I have to say ship, but actually let's redefine this. A rather battered ex-research Russian vessel that looks like a fishing trawler. And I'm thinking, looks a bit small. Okay, looks a bit... And there was a dent in the hull. And I was thinking, okay.
Always
All right.
encouraging.
Yeah, always encouraging, especially when you're going to be dealing with ice. Anyway, so we set off, and literally for 2 days, it was the roughest seas I've ever experienced. And of course, those so-called seasickness pills, well, they didn't tranquilise a rhino, and they certainly didn't help me deal with the situation. And it was quite terrifying. There was a moment when it was 60 knot winds, 10-metre swells, and this little boat was corkscrewing through the waves, and I was convinced I was going to die. I seriously thought, I'm not going to make it out of this. This is the end. I'm not going to write that book, But then, literally, at the end of the second day, everything went eerily quiet, and I thought, oh, this is a bit weird. Why has it gone so very quiet? There's no wind. We're not moving. And I go out on deck and the sea is completely calm. It is inky black water, and floating on top, and underneath, are the most enormous turquoise blue and white icebergs I've ever seen.
Amazing.
And as we got closer to the actual continent itself, you see these enormous ice sheets, and they're the ice, because the ice in Antarctica is permanently moving out from the centre, so it's always on the move, and it moves out over the ocean. And these are like the Game of Thrones. You know the ice wall in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So imagine looking up at that. That's what I was looking up at when I first saw the continent, and it literally took my breath away. And I was wow, you know. But it is extremely cold as well, and I mean, like, you know, it can get down to minus 80 degrees Celsius, which is about 28 odd Fahrenheit. So it can be a little bit cold, so you have to be prepared for that. But a breathtaking place. And, you know, as long as you're with people who know what they're doing, it is incredible.
You have to be with people who know what they're doing.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here sitting talking to you and enjoying this.
Were you ever tempted at any moment to have a kind of Kate Winslet-like moment at the front of with your arms stretched out and a cutout of Leonardo DiCaprio holding you?
Only when it was calm. There's no way on God's earth you'd have got me out. Well, in fact, they actually shut the door. What really worried me, because it was a Russian crew and a Russian captain, and he kept bellowing through this ancient tannoy system in Russian, which made me more nervous because he sounded really agitated, and all the exterior doors were shut, and I thought, oh, okay, so obviously they don't want us to fall overboard. But then I thought, well, how do I get to the lifeboats? If they've locked the doors to the external part of the ship, how can I get... Anyway, it was all right.
Well, we're going to go from I can feel the cold of minus 80 in Antarctica with LA Larkin to the heat of the cricket in Bangalore, where Charles Tagnall is.
Very different environment, yeah.
Certainly is, with 40,000 folks screaming the place down.
Yes.
At the moment, it's difficult to know who's got the upper hand, to be honest, guys. India 78 for 2, 9.4 overs gone. Suresh Raina was 43 not out. MS Dhoni has just come to the crease. That because KL Rahul, who batted beautifully in that second T20 international in Nagpur, had a wild hack across the line, and Ben Stokes beat him and bowled him for 22. But at the moment, Adil Rashid is purveying from the far end, and he's getting 1 or 2 to turn. But it's a very sort of cat and mouse type of affair at the moment. Not the traditional run fest that Bangalore usually is. But India at the moment are being kept quiet by the 2 England spinners, and with coming up to the halfway stage, they're 78 for 2.
All right, Charles, thank you very much indeed for that. I want to send a big shout out to the TV presenter Jason Bradbury, who's listening and he's just sent me a tweet. Yeah, he just sent me a tweet saying, loving the sound of Devour, and he's just tweeted that to his 500,000 followers on Twitter. So that's not a bad start,
that's
is
good,
it,
Louisa?
Yes, I love that man. Definitely love him.
Whoever that man is, I love him.
I love him.
You would love him. He's a very nice man. Let's talk about the start of the book. Kevin Knox, an engineer on the British team, trying to drill down into Lake. Now, he dies in a whiteout, so when the film is eventually made, his agent probably won't really want that part because he's only in it for about the first 10 minutes.
It's a bit part.
It's a very much a bit part,
yes.
A cameo. But what is a whiteout actually like? You experience one in Antarctica?
Yes. So in Antarctica, the climate can change very quickly. So 1 minute it might be cold, but you might have beautiful blue sky. But literally within about 20 minutes, a storm can come in. And what the wind does is it whips up the ice, and it becomes almost like a fog full of swirling ice. So when it becomes a whiteout, it is so thick that you can't see the horizon, you cannot see your feet, and often you can't even see your hands in front of your face. So it's like... I can only describe it as, because it's swirling and moving around you, and it's completely around you, and you can't even see the people, a few yards away from you. It's like being inside a white golf ball on the move. And it can actually really upset your balance, because if you can't see the horizon and you can't really, it's very easy to sort of actually fall down. And again, I was lucky I was with people who knew what they were doing. But that experience and the roar of the wind, the totally the cold, and actually only beginning to understand how debilitating the cold can be and how confused you can actually very quickly get, was helped me to write poor old Kevin Knox's demise. Yes, which of course the question is, was it an accident or was it murder?
Terrifying, invigorating in equal measure, or more terrifying?
Oh, terrifying. Yeah, terrifying. No one would want to be, I don't think, in that apart from me because I'm mad.
And apart from maybe Olivia Wolfe, who is your
Olivia Wolfe.
protagonist, who we're introduced to in chapter 2. Tell us a bit about her, because we meet her in a dramatic introduction, fighting her way out of a potential hostage situation.
Yeah. So I've written a number of one-off thrillers with both male and female central characters, and they're all action, conspiracy, intrigue thrillers. And I decided I wanted to start a series of thrillers, which kicks off with Devour. And I made the decision that I would like to have a female central character, which for an action thriller, if you think sort of the Jason Bourne type movies or the Lee Child, Jack Reacher characters, Michael Connelly characters and so on, they're not all, but they tend to be more male. And I was thinking, well, why? Why is it, so many women love, men and women, of course, but love reading thrillers. They love the action, the excitement, but why not a female? And it occurred to me that perhaps it was because there is so much jeopardy, and there's always a degree of physical danger. And inevitably a thriller of this kind gets to the point where the hero, as I will call Olivia Wolfe, the hero's life is really in the balance. But then I don't know whether you know this journalist who has been a favourite of mine for many, many years and sadly passed away in 2012. But Marie Colvin.
Marie Colvin.
Of course, in
Yes.
Syria.
Yeah. Died in the
Sunday Times.
apparently, deliberately targeted.
By Assad's regime.
Exactly. Which is tragic because she was an incredibly brave woman. And I used to read all her pieces from wherever she was, whether it was Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria and so on. And I admired her enormously because she was not behind, some nice, safe military zone, tucked up in a hotel somewhere. She was literally where the bombardments were happening. And she was determined to show the world about what was happening in these war zones to often to the innocent victims of war, who are the women and children.
And she wasn't a trained soldier or a former trained special agent or any of those things like Olivia.
Well, no. Olivia isn't.
No, that's what I mean. Olivia.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
So this is not a woman. It's a woman that has vulnerability because she's not actually special forces or anything like that. She's just a woman who's an investigative journalist.
Well, that's right. And there are. I mean, I'm an avid thriller reader. Which is no surprise. And so there are authors out there who do things like, army or ex-military characters. They do detective characters, FBI, CIA, spy. They do them brilliantly. And so I wanted to do something a bit different. And the great thing about an investigative journalist is that I can send her off all over the world. As long as she is pursuing a criminal or criminal syndicate or a conspiracy or a cover-up, I can send her wherever that is. And it means that for each book in the series, there's a new adventure and there's a new location. So the next one, for instance, in the series is mainly set in South Africa.
Great. She has a stalker. Why did you introduce that?
Well, stalkers... Olivia is pursued by a cyber stalker, which is very topical in many ways. What I found interesting about creating a female lead character in this kind of book is that there is a degree of vulnerability. And I was reading a lot of articles about women who are stalked and the different types of personalities who do this stalking. And what this cyber stalker does is further undermines, the danger and threat that she is in, and most importantly, undermines the security of her home. And I think that's a lot of cyber stalkers, particularly ones who watch people through the webcams, which is what happens in the book. They can actually they can hack you and switch on your webcam and actually watch you. It is targeted at women, and so Olivia Wolfe is a female-centric character, and it's a great way of destabilising her, putting more pressure on her. Because thrillers are all about piling on the pressure on a character. So it's not just physical pressure; there's emotional and mental threat as well.
Who would play Olivia Wolfe? Who'd be your ideal?
Oh, my goodness, that's a brilliant question. And the thing is, I had a conversation with somebody about that the other day, and we couldn't think of the right person because Olivia is deliberately a small build. I didn't want her to be, big and tough. I wanted her to be, when she needs to be, fast. But small, slightly alternative because she's got, a few body piercings and so on, and dark hair. Honestly, I can't answer that question. If you've got any ideas, I'm all ears. But yeah, I mean, maybe who would suit?
So
that?
the two female leads in the latest 2 Star Wars films are interesting.
Yes, because they're very resilient and resourceful, aren't they?
Really resilient and resourceful.
Yeah, they
and
might
tough
be
and,
good. They might be good. Well, I think that's a really good idea. So if you want to put that out there to, anybody, perhaps to the actresses, because I think it would make a great movie, and there's a lot to keep people interested, and it actually moves to different countries as well. So it could be fun to shoot.
And Lisbeth Salander from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, no influence on Olivier, who's a motorbike, dresses in black, wears leather jackets, etc.
Lisbeth Salander from the Millennium Trilogy. I think that the Millennium Trilogy was pivotal in terms of these kind of books because Lisbeth Salander was pretty much the first female in a thriller where there is a lot of violence because she goes through some terrible things, and she is resilient and she survives, and she has her own judgment system, which is very unusual, but she survives. And so, yes, absolutely, she was an inspiration for Olivia because what she says is that a female in this kind of environment can survive, can do what they need to do, and can also be extremely popular. So, yes, she is, although Olivia does have some secrets which will be revealed later on, but she's certainly... I would say she's not quite as damaged in many ways as Lisbeth Salander.
Who's incredibly damaged.
Yeah, she's incredible for understandable reasons.
For understandable reasons, absolutely. In terms of your extreme researching, does that then limit your imagination in the sense that you will think about things that you want to do, but then the cost may be prohibitive or the dangers involved in researching it may be prohibitive?
Not really. There are, for instance...
What lengths will you go to? I mean, you'll go pretty far, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Well, the sewing up the wound was an interesting one.
Yes, tell us about that.
Yeah, OK. But just to answer your question, so, for instance, Afghanistan, the scene in Kabul, is an important scene where you first meet Olivia Wolfe for Devour, but I haven't been there.
Right.
And that was reliant on journalist blogs.
Right.
Reading their articles and also watching YouTube. So there are ways to do it, of course, and I hope it's authentic. But anyway, the pig's leg. Let me tell you about because it's actually a pig's leg. So I have to make it clear here. Number one, I didn't go at somebody with a needle.
No one said, "Hey, Louisa,
I didn't
you can do
slice
my
their
leg
open and go, "Oh, shall I just sew that up?" And also, when I say pig's leg, no pig was harmed in this process. So basically, what happened was I wanted to know how to sew up a wound. Actually try what it's like and what it actually feels like to pull skin together in that sort of way on an open wound. And it just so happened I was at the vet with my dog, and I thought, why don't I ask him? And, he said, and I explained what I wanted to do. And I said, look, I don't want to do it on a dog. I'm not going to hurt a dog, but what can I do? He said, I know what you do. Go to the butcher, buy a pig's leg. I said, really? He said, yes, the skin is very similar. I went, okay. He said, come back with the pig's leg and we'll sew it up. And that's exactly what I did. I went down to the butcher and he said, here's a really nice one, nice and crispy. It'll cook up in the oven very well. I said, no, that's not what I'm going to be using it for. I'm going to be practicing sewing up a wound. And the butcher obviously couldn't get me out of there quickly enough. And I went back to the vet and he said, right, off we go, let's try it. And obviously he cut the skin, and then he said, because it's a fresh leg, and he said, right, this is how you do the sutures. God, it's weird. It's a very odd thing to do. He showed me how to do it, and then I had to go, and then I went back and I wrote the scene where the wound is sewn up, and that's actually in a previous book called Thirst, which is also set in Antarctica.
And there are many more to come with Olivia Wolfe. Pleased to hear that this is just the start of it, Louisa. Thank you very much for being with us on the programme.
I have loved talking to you. It's been great fun, and thank you so much.
Yes,
absolute pleasure.
Thank you to Jason Bradbury for tweeting about it.
And we love him.
Yes, we love him.
We so love him.
You're going to go and look him up, though, aren't you?
I am. I've
tweeted him tagging you in it, so there you go. It's all done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Louisa. L.A. Larkin, and the book is called Devour. It's 5 Live. It's just gone 2:30.